In this episode of the Happy Diabetic Kitchen, we'll be talking about dark leafy greens and how to use them, the amazing recipe of the podcast, and a special interview with Dr. Janice Baker, a registered certified dietitian with over 41 years of experience. Let's get cooking. This episode of the Happy Diabetic Kitchen podcast is sponsored by my diabetes supplier, US Med. US Med offers free shipping and a 90-day supply with every order. To see how they can simplify your diabetes care, simply call 888-885-0012 or join the Happy Diabetic community at usmed.com/happy diabetic. I did, and I can feel the love. There is a much better solution. For me, it's US Med. Hello everyone, I am Chef Robert Lewis, the Happy Diabetic, and welcome to the internet's most delicious cooking podcast. I'm here in the kitchen getting ready to explore a healthy diabetic lifestyle. I want to take the mystery out of healthy cooking and explore some amazing foods and my diabetic journey with all my successes and challenges. Let me help you live your best happy diabetic lifestyle. So welcome to the kitchen. I'm so happy that you're here. And if you're new to the show, welcome, welcome, welcome. And normally in the kitchen with me is my son Jason, engineer and producer of the podcast. Today he is on special assignment. Today in the kitchen, I want to chat about falling in love with dark greens. We'll have an interview with Janice Baker, registered dietitian, the recipe of the podcast, my roasted vegetable soup, and a few tips about eating in the season, and much, much more. So if you're ready, let's get cooking. Eating a variety of vegetables and fruits ensures I'm getting all the vitamins and minerals and nutrients that I need to make my body healthy, all the antioxidants, nature's rust prohibitors. Dark greens really are an important vegetable color that is often overlooked. And according to WebMD, it's estimated that more than 80% of Americans do not meet the recommended intake of dark, leafy, green vegetables of love. So, what are the dark leafy greens? Well, here's a list that I live by, and here they go. Here we go. Bok choy, broccoli, collard greens, kale. I know what you're thinking. Kale, oh my gosh. All lettuces, romaine, arugula, muscalin, baby spinach, mustard greens, regular spinach, radish greens, watercress, turnip greens, Swiss chard. These are some of my very favorite dark leafy greens. And of course, here at the Happy Diabetic Kitchen, we always seem to talk about antioxidants. It's really important. Antioxidants, I like to think of as nature's rust prohibitor. Your body can produce antioxidants naturally, but they're also found in dark chocolate, legumes, and many fruits and vegetables. Now, as a reminder, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a certified registered nutritionist. I'm just a chef living with type 2 diabetes. So any advice that you get on a podcast like this or anywhere else, always consult your doctor just to be sure you're on the right track. So here are some simple ways to add dark leafy green vegetables to your daily diet. Eat them raw in a salad. Of course. Romaine, arugula, muscalin, baby spinach, kale, watercress, radish greens are tasty, tasty choices, and add some spicy texture to those delicious salads. You can saute them with olive oil, salt, and pepper. I love to take some chopped garlic, red pepper flakes, some hot oil, add the vegetables, and finish them with a squeeze of citrus juice or vinegar for extra flavor, like a really great balsamic vinegar. Bok choy, collard greens, dandelion greens, kale, spinach, mustard greens, turnip greens, Swiss chard are some of my most popular choices. Sauteed dark green vegetables can be added to pastas, lasagnas, omelets, eggs, grain bowls, casseroles. Are you getting the picture here? You can add them in almost anything. Broccoli is also a super nice addition. Now, in the recipe of the podcast, you're going to see how we add some of those greens right to my delicious soup. And of course, talking about soup, add them during the very last few minutes of cooking. Bok choy, kale, Swiss chard spinach are super popular leafy green choices. A large handful will melt down to nearly nothing. And again, I love broccoli in soup too. We're kind of broccoli freaks here at the Happy Diabetic Kitchen. You can use dark leafy greens as wraps instead of tortillas or pita bread. Collard greens, butter lettuce, romaine leaves work great as wraps. You can fill them with meats and vegetables and hummus, shredded carrots, cucumbers, tomatoes, guacamole, olives, feta cheese, and roll them like a burrito. It's one of my favorite ways to add some amazing nutrition to a breakfast, lunch, or supper. Okay, hold on tight because this is one of my favorite things to do. It's make a pesto sauce. So basil pesto is the most well-known variety. It's basil, Parmesan cheese, pine nuts, olive oil, garlic. But did you know pesto can be made with any dark green vegetable? So if you're using a food processor, which I recommend, or a blender, you're going to blend about 4 cups of greens, your choice, or mix and match the greens together. With 1 clove of garlic, half a cup of nuts like pine nuts or cashews until finely chopped. Next, we're going to add a stream of some super high quality extra virgin olive oil while continuing to process the pesto until it has the consistency that you like. I like it smooth, no chunks. Season with a little salt and pepper. Add the Parmesan cheese if you like, or skip the cheese and make it completely vegan. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Special guest in the Happy Diabetic Kitchen, Janice Baker. And Janice has been on the show before, episode 23, and it was great having her then, and even more exciting for me to have her back today. Janice, why don't you tell all the Happy Diabetics out there a little bit about you, where you live, what you do, and yeah.
Okay, terrific. It's really an honor and a great pleasure to be here. I'm so happy to chat with you again. So, my name is Janice Baker. I'm based here in San Diego, where it's not too cold right now. We're in the high 60s, which isn't
Nice.
too shabby, right?
Right?
And so I am a registered dietitian nutritionist, a certified diabetes care and education specialist, certified nutrition support clinician, and board certified in advanced diabetes management. And I've been in practice since 1983. So I'm going on 40 years of working in this field. And needless to say, I've seen a lot of things, a lot of things changed, a lot of updates, new ways to approach and help manage diabetes, many great new options now, but still there's a lot of misinformation, confusion, anxiety, kind of fear around food, which I think really still gets in the way of us with diabetes or even without diabetes living the best life we can. So really my passion, especially at this point in my career, is to help sift out those things and help people have a happy, peaceful, relaxed relationship with food. Remember, pleasure is just as much a part of nutrition as all the other parts. So if the food doesn't taste good, if it's not enjoyable, if it's not something that is easy to prepare and maintain, adequate nourishing meals, then it's gonna really not be sustainable and really not overall contribute to health. So that's why I'm glad we're talking today.
Yeah. And Janice is the real deal. I've known Janice for many years. We've worked together in many different conferences. Janice, I'll ask you this at the end of the podcast, but
Mhm.
tell everybody where they can find you.
Well, you can find me. Um, right here in San Diego, North County, San Diego. I'm sort of freelancing now, so I do private practice. We can link in the show notes probably my contact information.
Yep. We'll do
Usually
all that.
podcasts have show notes. You can find me on Twitter at Janice Baker RD. I have a Facebook page, Baker Nutrition, and I'm doing some work in the area of coexisting eating disorders and diabetes. It's really become my specialty now.
Wow.
But I do individual consultation with people with not just diabetes, but other concerns like cardiovascular disease, issues with nutrition because of other medical nutrition issues, kind of all across the field just because of my background and experience. So
Yeah.
we can give you more information in the show notes, but
Yep.
those are
We'll
the
link.
main social handles.
Yeah. We'll link all that up.
Okay.
Well, Janice, today we're talking about leafy greens. Now, I get this question a lot
Mhm.
about what's the deal with leafy greens? And do I really need to infuse more of that into my diet? So, in this podcast, I've talked about how to do that and how to cook with them and some
Mhm.
ideas about it. But maybe why don't you just address to the folks out there, maybe the science or the nutrition, why dark leafy greens should be a part of a happy and healthy diabetic eating lifestyle?
Yeah, I love that question because that's one component of our foods that can add a lot of bang for the buck, so to speak, in terms of great nutrition. So leafy greens, of course, you go to the grocery store and you look in the produce department and there's tons of choices. There's the lettuces of all colors, which are all really nice, but we like the darker ones because of the higher concentrations of a lot of great nutrients, the beta carotenes, the different vitamins and minerals, phytochemicals, and there's all kinds of lovely choices. So in the fresh produce department, of course, we have kale, we have romaine, we have watercress, we have all the other types of romaine, butter lettuce. They're all beautiful and wonderful. The point, though, that I like to make sometimes is that depending on your food access and your ability to prepare, they sometimes have pretty limited shelf life, right? So I buy a lot of leafy greens, but why? Because I have a lot of reptiles to feed. We were just talking about that. I do reptile rescue, and they eat a lot because that's a mainstay of at least part of their diet. But we're not talking about reptiles today. We're talking about human beings. We'll do reptiles in another episode.
Perfect.
But they add a lot of things that contribute to many health aspects of our bodies. So, in fact, with concerning diabetes, it's not just about blood sugar levels. It's about protecting our heart, protecting our kidneys, protecting our liver, protecting our GI tract, because diabetes affects every single part of our body. And some of the main concerns in diabetes is cardiovascular disease and chronic kidney disease. And we find that dietary patterns that have a good amount of fruits and vegetables, remember, there's no bad fruit, there is no bad vegetables, contribute a lot of components. It's not just the vitamins and minerals. And of course, they have a relatively lower caloric density. They have high water content, which are benefits, but they have fibers, both insoluble and soluble fibers, that work in our gastrointestinal tract to feed the good beneficial bacteria, which is associated with better health outcomes. This has been well studied, as well as be digested into what we call short chain fatty acids, which are fuel for the lining of the gastrointestinal system, which is a big part of our immunity. So they're very health protective in many ways. They're also rich in minerals, and one specifically called potassium, which is associated with better blood pressure. Better blood pressure control benefits our heart, benefits our brain, benefits our kidneys. So they're associated with better blood pressure, among many other things. So, really, I want to make a point too, because many people with diabetes also are concerned about their kidneys. They may have been diagnosed with chronic kidney disease, and that's not unusual. It's pretty common, actually, as time goes on. And the very old dietary recommendations, outdated dietary recommendations, and I know about these because I was there for them, have been recently updated just in the past year and a half or so, regarding dietary recommendations in the setting of chronic kidney disease, which is associated with this. So I want to bring attention to the fact that we used to tell people who had chronic kidney disease, usually around stage 3 or 4 or so, oh, don't eat these fruits and vegetables, don't eat these because of the potassium. That's not true anymore. That we throw out in the trash. That's old information because we have some increased sort of or better data on that, showing that the potassium contents of these fruits and vegetables and potassium rich healthful foods like beans and whole grains and things like that is really not highly what we call bioavailable in the gut. So we actually can now relax a lot of these old restrictions on fruits and vegetables for people with chronic kidney disease. We individualize the medical nutrition therapy because there's many other things that can cause elevated potassium levels in the blood outside of food. So we need to look at this in a more updated way than before. But I know a lot of those old ideas are still hanging around and will be repeated. So I wanted to bring that up as well.
Yeah, I think it's a great point because the knowledge about diabetes is moving so quickly, the new
Yeah.
knowledge.
Yeah.
And people tend to get hung up on what they were told 10 or 15 years ago. Um, yeah, it's challenging for sure. I mean, I think Steve Edelman, a good friend of ours, has said in the past, there's no better time to be diabetic because of the advancements in medicine and nutrition and just the thought about how to deal with your diabetes.
That's so true. I can't agree more, having been doing this since the early 80s. And, we get so much great feedback from the newer technologies and devices. We have such better medications that
Right.
can be adjusted and changed as needed. So we're in a great place. However, even with that, there can be a lot of confusion, a lot of fear mongering, a lot of apprehension about relaxing restrictions on diet. And this anxiety about food and eating actually backfires and causes more harm
Mm,
than
interesting.
you can imagine.
Yeah. What would you tell people going into this holiday season?
Yeah.
Because it's challenging, right?
Oh,
Thanksgiving just happened, and now we're getting into a time when really we're being invited to people's houses or
mhm.
office parties or all kinds of food hanging out. And I love when I go to people's houses and they say, "Oh, I made something special for you that's diabetic friendly."
Mm.
And so what's your take on what advice do you have for
I
people
totally
in this
love this
holiday
question.
season?
This is the best question ever.
Okay. Woohoo.
The best question ever. So, first of all, this really coincides what I recommend all year long, right? It's not just about the holidays. So, I always say, listen, food is a lovely, wonderful part of celebrating whatever holiday it is. Doesn't matter what the holiday it is. Like,
Hmm.
it's
Right.
all year long. There's always fun things that food is a part of, and that's beautiful. It's a pleasure in life. So first of all, I still let people know, listen, there's a lot of things you can do to support yourself if it's kind of a anxiety ridden. So first, make sure you're well nourished consistently, sufficiently throughout the day. Because if you're just like sort of skipping meals, skipping breakfast, skipping lunch, because you know this dinner's going to happen, your brain is going to perceive that it's being threatened with a famine or starvation. So it's much more likely biologically, it's not willpower. Willpower is not a thing. It's much more likely biologically that you'll be prone to eating more than you would usually because of just your brain is perceiving it hasn't been fed all day and it's really needing to make up for that. And you may have this feeling of being out of control, and then the guilt kicks in, and then restriction kicks in again. And it's a really vicious cycle that's very brutal on blood sugar control and brutal on your body. So eat breakfast, eat lunch, eat enough during the day, and go into a holiday event gently hungry, but not overly hungry. Make sure you're hydrated. Big deal. That's part of blood sugar control. Is good hydration. Make sure you're rested, right? Yeah. What we find is when people are sleep deprived for whatever reason, the hormones that impact their appetite, their blood pressure, blood sugar, blood cholesterol are adversely impacted. So get good sleep. Eat regularly throughout the day. Don't starve yourself for this big thing at night. Savor and enjoy the food without guilt or shame. Guilt and shame shouldn't be served as a side dish.
I love that. That's awesome.
It's not a good
advice.
side dish. It rips the joy from everything, right?
Yeah.
And so I want to address this idea of diabetic friendly, right? All food is diabetic friendly. I'm just going to say that.
Thank you for that.
I'm going to say that louder for those in the back.
Say it one more time.
All food is diabetic friendly. It just is. So it's context, right? So if you want to play and hack your recipes, I do this all the time. I have a lot of experience in that. It doesn't always turn out well, but I have to try sometimes. I can understand using a little bit less sugar. Sometimes there's alternative ingredients to cut down on total sugar use. Like I use some Splenda sort of baking blends, and I've tried that because I get sent some samples of these things. So I hack recipes a little bit, but if you hack too much, it turns out, not so great, right? So bottom line, we want a really nice outcome if we're going to put in the work to create a nice meal or dish or recipe. But even if that didn't happen, even if somebody brought a beautiful pumpkin pie from Costco and they make great pumpkin pies, it's still diabetic friendly because, again, if you sit there and eat it, it's an event. It's not a pattern necessarily. It's a day. It's not every day. You eat in the context of a lovely meal. Sometimes we need to adjust our medications a little bit for that meal. If you're taking mealtime insulin, for example, so that's a beautiful part of how we manage diabetes in this day and age. We can do that. Enjoy the heck out of that dessert that isn't necessarily sometimes labeled as diabetic friendly. So enjoy it. All food is diabetic friendly.
Yeah. I mean, everything in moderation. Would you agree? Portion?
Well, moderation's an interesting word. I say it depends on, again, the context, right? Check in with yourself. Are you feeling satisfied? Are you feeling really getting pleasure out of that food? Have you eaten enough during the day so that your appetite is regulated enough? So it's not just that one meal. It's like, what happens surrounding the meal? What happens during the day? Are you nourishing yourself adequately so your hunger and fullness signals are working correctly? So, that was delicious and I enjoyed that experience.
Right. Yeah, that is amazing advice. I mean, that's what I tell people. And sometimes I get strange looks about it, but I think it's a mindset of learning to live differently as someone living with diabetes.
So much. Right. There's so much guilt and shame thrown on people
Right.
with diabetes.
Right.
And first of all, that does not help anyone's health, right?
Right. Right.
Second of all, it gets very internalized. So you could be saying, okay, I will take a piece of that pie, but your head is filled with so much shame and guilt that you can't really even enjoy it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're
Right.
entitled to enjoy it.
Right.
So we need to rethink the language we're using around nutrition and diabetes. And remember, everyone's goals are different.
Yeah.
Everyone's needs are different.
Yeah.
And
One size does not fit all.
it's never going to fit all. And I can't fix other people's mouths. Unfortunately, you're going to get people at parties who are going to say stuff. So I'd say, be prepared with ways to sort of deal with comments like,
Right.
are you sure you should be eating that? And that's going to happen, right?
Right.
There's
Right.
many others. I just say typically neutralize and redirect. So redirect the conversation to a totally different topic than food and eating. Like say, oh, that's an interesting question. Did you see that Netflix movie last week? Or what trip are you going to take this year?
Mm. That's a good strategy. There's a lot of what we call type threes listening to this podcast, the caregivers, the people that
Yeah.
love diabetics. Bill Polanski has quoted this many times. I think he came up with and Bill, who calls, he suggests to people, don't be the diabetic police, right? I mean, don't police people, but support them and love them and help them.
Well, it's no different. Like I work, a very big part of my practice is eating disorders and disordered eating. And so our culture is just so full of diet police, right?
Mm-hmm.
Judging, shaming about food choices because of people's body size. And
Right.
that's very stigmatizing and awful. And it causes so much harm.
Yeah.
So don't be the food police. Enjoy your plate. Your plate is your business. Everyone's
Right.
plate is their own business, right?
Right.
It's going to happen, but when it does, I recommend neutralize and redirect. Just redirect the conversation to a
Yeah.
totally different topic. You can't argue with people. They're going to want to convince you of their whatever diet thing they're on, or they're going to go on. Just really divert the conversation to another topic.
Yeah. That is absolutely great advice. Well, Janice, thank you so much for being here today. It's been my honor to have you for sure. And any last thoughts you'd like to leave
Yes,
everybody?
I wanted to fit some other stuff in because I want
Let's
to go
do
back
it.
to Leafy Greens just for a couple minutes.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it.
So I'm a big one about making things simple, right? Keeping it easy. So yeah, going to the produce department is great, but I'm a big, big fan of working in the veggies, the leafy greens, in ways that are really easy for you. I really want to consider people's ability and their access and their time and budget. So you can go to the frozen food department. You can get frozen spinach. You can get frozen chopped up veggies that you can use just what you need. It's not going to waste.
Right.
It's going to stay there.
Yeah.
You
We love
can
frozen
add,
foods.
oh, totally. You can
Absolutely.
add leafy greens to soups, to stews, to lasagna. So there's ways to work it in.
Yeah. Matter of fact, the recipe of the podcast is my farmer's market vegetable oven roasted soup with kale or spinach or Swiss chard as the greens in the soup. So yeah, that does work really, really great.
It works great. And then once it's slightly cooked, it's easier to digest.
Right.
And then you can freeze the extras for later.
Absolutely.
I love
frozen
that part of it.
Yeah, I love frozen foods because, and we talk a lot about that here, because you can use what you need and put the rest in the freezer. And they're from a nutrition standpoint, they're as nutritious.
Just as good. So I'm a huge frozen food fan.
Right. Me too. Me too. People think, well, it's frozen food, but it's an amazing way to go.
And it really cuts down on food waste. I mean, that's a big point we talk about is food waste, right?
Right. Right.
And way back in college, over 40 years ago, I had a whole class on food conservation. I mean, that was one of my favorite classes.
Yeah.
We used everything and we learned how to not waste anything. And so
Right.
I got a lot of great training there.
Right.
And I still use that to this
And,
day.
and and especially, if you are living by yourself or with
Yeah.
just two people, like me,
Yeah.
um, it's an excellent way to go.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Janice, anything else you want to throw into this mix? We've had a great conversation. Anything else?
This was fun. I just want to say, listen, while you're enjoying the holidays, be mindful of important other ways to keep yourself healthy and safe, obviously. One thing about this time of year that as it relates to food is food safety,
Mm,
right? Because we are
right.
seeing, I just was reading some comments about how people make their turkeys this time of year that made my brain explode because of the food safety things. And I took a lot of food microbiology and know a lot about food safety issues. So be extra careful with food handling, washing your hands, food storage, throwing out leftovers. Foodborne illness is crazy horrible. If you've ever had it, So food safety is one of the most important things I tend to really talk about this time of year. Just be careful with handling, storing, keeping food, make sure it's heated to the right temperature. It's just my training in hospital food service,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. We'll have to get into that topic a little bit more because we don't touch on food safety very
Ooh,
much.
it's a
And I
big
think
deal.
it is a big deal. And thank you for bringing it up. And we'll get together again and maybe chat about that. That would be
Sounds
awesome.
great.
Yeah. Well, Janice, thank you for being on the podcast today. It's just a pleasure to have you. And happy holidays.
You too. Oh, it's so great to get back together again.
It is so amazing. All right, Janice, thanks for being on the show.
Okay, and happy holidays to all of our listeners. Stay warm and cozy. And listen, a great meal is a grilled cheese sandwich and a cup of hot cocoa. So
I
enjoy
agree
yourself.
100%. All right. Thank you, Janice.
Okay, take care.
Getting a little frustrated, and quite honestly, so was I. I decided to call US Med to see if there was a better way. Guess what? There is. Their motto is better service, better care. It's what they call white glove service. And honestly, I was worn out by having to make multiple trips to the pharmacy only to discover the orders were not ready. Long lines, or we need to call your doc to confirm the refill. Don't worry, they said, we'll take care of everything. Then only to find out 2 weeks later, the doc has not responded or they lost the paperwork. My doctor said, I've sent it all. I've had it. I had enough. It was just a huge frustration, and I hated that part of filling my prescriptions the most. So, head over to US Med. Are you ready for US Med to always provide you 90 days worth of supplies, fast, and by the way, with free shipping? They carry everything from insulin pumps, diabetes testing supplies to the latest CGMs, Freestyle Libre 2 and the Dexcom G6. You know, my love for the Libre 2 system, and US Med is the #1 distributor for Freestyle Libre systems nationwide. If you're just starting with Medicare like me, US Med should be your next call. They accept Medicare nationwide and a broad private insurance coverage with over 800 private insurers. And by the way, they have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. If you're looking for supplies, everything from insulin pumps and diabetes testing supplies to the latest CGMs, and you're looking for better service, easier service delivered right to your door, US Med might be just what you're looking for. Why don't you call them at 888-885-0012 or go to my Happy Diabetic community page, usmed.com/happy diabetic. Don't wait any longer. Hold on, I hear my doorbell. I think that's US Med at the door now. What are you waiting for? Make that call or go to the website usmed.com/happy diabetic now. Don't wait any longer. Okay, now it's time for the recipe of the podcast, and here we go. It's my farmer's market roasted vegetable soup, and here's what you're going to need to put it all together. 2 carrots diced, 4 mushrooms diced, 1 pepper diced, 1 large onion diced, 1 can of drained Italian beans, 1 small butternut squash peeled, seeded, and chopped, 2 garlic cloves chopped or sliced, 2 tablespoons of canola or olive oil, 2 sprigs of fresh thyme, 1 14-ounce, no salt added can of diced tomatoes, 32 ounces of no salt added vegetable stock, a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, 1.5 cups of fresh kale, spinach, or Swiss chard, or any combination, and a 1/4 cup of chopped fresh parsley. Those are your ingredients. Now let's put it together. Basically what you're going to do is you're going to preheat the oven at 425 degrees. Spread the vegetables in a single layer on a sheet pan. Drizzle with a little bit of oil and mix with your hands evenly to distribute all the oil. Roast for about 30 minutes until nice and caramely, stirring them halfway. Then we're going to pour the tomatoes and the thyme over the vegetables and roast for another 15 minutes. Then, just until the tomatoes and the vegetables have turned slightly golden brown, we'll remove them and remove the parsley stems. Use a spatula to transfer the vegetables and the tomato mixture to a large saucepan. Add the stock, season with salt and pepper, and we're going to cook for about 10 to 20 minutes. Then we'll add the kale or Swiss chard or spinach at the very last. Simmer it until the kale or Swiss chard or spinach is wilted. Add the parsley, stir to combine, remove from heat, and serve nice and piping hot. That's it. My farmer's market roasted vegetable soup. Again, you'll find it on the internet, on the website, happydiabetic.com. Go to my blog, and there you'll find it. Be sure to follow me with all my social links. You'll find them at happydiabetic.com. Just look for the links at the top of the right-hand side of the page. And if you have any questions for me, go to my website, hit the contact tab. I would love to hear from you and answer any questions you might have. If you're loving what you hear at the Happy Diabetic Kitchen, please leave a comment or feedback at Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or reach out to me via my contact, or wherever you're listening. Your thoughts and comments are appreciated. Thank you so much for being here. Our podcast is produced and engineered by Jason Lewis. Our theme music by the Happy Diabetic Kitchen Band, and yours truly, Chef Robert, on the guitar. And of course, our kitchen mascots, Scout and Tucker. Thanks for tuning in, and let me leave you with this thought. Mark Twain once said, "The secret of success in life is to eat what you like and let the food fight it out on the inside." So long for now, and remember, no one loves you more than me.